All right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I hope you guys are having a good day today, a good 420. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story, let's talk about the New York Pro a little bit and some impressive physique updates that have came out recently, specifically this one here from Justin Rodriguez. So Justin Rodriguez, I think, is going to be one of the front runners in this show. Again, right now, the main conversation is kind of circulating around Nick and Blessing, but you've also got Justin, who I think is going to be a top guy, and you've also got Hassan Mustafa, who I think is going to be another top guy that's right there, probably in the first call-out, probably in the mix for the top three. But Justin recently posted this physique update, which is a front double bicep pose, which already was one of my favorite poses from Justin. I think he's got a nice variation of the front double bicep. He kind of adds a little bit of a twist, a little bit of a tilt to that pose, and I think it really is a favorable tweak to that pose for his physique. But he posted this update, and granted, it's under really good lighting. It looks like it might be a little bit filtered, but he looks incredibly good in this physique update at just, what are we now, from the New York Pro? About 3 weeks away, maybe a little bit more than 3 weeks away from the New York. He looks fantastic in this front double bicep in this update. Granted, like I said, the lighting's really good. He's in that goon light, but he looks great. His conditioning looks great. His legs look good. He's vascular. He's got great shape to his physique. That's one of the things that I really like about him. He's very aesthetic. He's got really good flow. I like his posing. Like I said, the front double bicep is kind of like his bread and butter pose. He's got really short bicep head, so it's got kind of a unique look to his biceps, which I personally prefer. I think the short bicep peaks look better than long in bodybuilding and in classic. And I think he's really done a good job of tailoring that pose to the strength of his physique. So Justin, I think, is going to be a top 3 guy at the New York Pro. Now that brings me to the next guy, Hassan Mustafa. Now, I don't know why, but I've just got this gut feeling that Hassan is going to win the New York Pro. Overall, Hassan has been kind of the quietest guy. He's posted the least physique updates. He's made the least amount of noise. But honestly, I think he's got one of the most impressive physiques that we know is going to be competing in the New York Pro. So the first recent thing that Hassan posted was this back lat spread, so you get kind of an idea of what his back is looking like. I think Hassan is extremely complete. He's got crazy round muscle bellies. His arms are huge. His legs are huge. But proportionally, I think it all balances out really well, and that's the thing that kind of impresses me about Hassan. He's very complete, but he's also very freaky, and he's not just freaky in one body part over another. He seems really well balanced, and I've just got this feeling that he's going to win the New York Pro. Now, he did post this video as well, getting some PT work done, it looks like. I don't know how recent this is because I can't really tell based on the video or based on the lighting or the angle how good of shape he's in or not in this video, but you guys can kind of get an idea from this video about the crazy roundness that I was talking about, the roundness that he's got in his arms. Hassan is just very impressive, and I just have this feeling that Hassan's going to win and everybody else is going to be fighting for top 3. So that's kind of my prediction on the New York Pro. Everybody's asking me, do you think it's going to be Nick? Do you think it's going to be Blessing? I just have this feeling it's going to be neither of them, and I think Hassan is going to take that top spot, to be honest with you guys. I think Hassan just might be one of those quietly confident guys that's just moving in silence. He's very confident. He's not posting a ton of physique updates. He's not talking a bunch of trash, and I think he's going to show up on the day of the show looking extremely impressive and kind of blow everybody's minds. So moving on from the New York Pro, I think we've talked enough about Blessing and Nick yesterday, that rivalry. We've talked about Hassan. We've talked about Justin. Let's move on to the Chicago Pro coming up in July. Sergio Oliva Jr. making his return to the pro bodybuilding stage in Chicago. We have not seen him since the Arnold Classic, where he took a top 5. Very impressive showing from Sergio Oliva Jr. there. Posting his first of very few physique updates, it seems, with the caption, "People think just because you don't post progress pics on IG that you ain't working. I believe the old school ways. You want to see what I look like, then come to the show or buy the live feed. Bodybuilding isn't picking when you look good. It's going on stage and timing it when judges tell you to be ready. 90% of bodybuilders' issues is perfecting that timing. The build-up is the excitement. The build-up and excitement of what someone looks like is what the sport was built off. So just like every show I've ever done, I won't be posting updates, so stop asking. I wait on stage. At the Arnold last year, what these cats weigh in their off-season. If you're coming to the Chicago Pro for an Olympia qualification, then don't come." Sergio Oliva Jr. laying down the gauntlet for everybody else competing at the Chicago Pro. Now, based on that caption, I don't know if this is a recent physique update or not. I don't know if this is an old one. He's just posting to throw people off because he basically says in that caption he doesn't believe in posting physique updates in the lead up to a show. It's best left to just the day of the show, which I think is it takes a lot of discipline. I think that's a pretty unique mindset, and I actually like that about Sergio. But from a fan's perspective, I think that's half the fun is the speculation, the lead up, who's going to beat who. I think that kind of thing leading up to a show, the physique updates, it adds an element of suspense. It adds a little bit of interest. I think it makes it more interesting when you get to talk about, look how this guy looks at 5 weeks out. Look how this guy looks at 5 weeks out. You think this guy's going to beat this guy? I think that is what really makes it interesting, is giving the fans something to speculate about and talk about leading up to a show. But I appreciate the fact that Sergio is kind of going against the grain with not posting physique updates. But he does kind of lay down the law on this physique update. We know that Akeem Williams is competing in the Chicago Pro, and another guy I wanted to talk about here that's competing in the Chicago Pro is Charles Griffin, who posted these videos to his story recently. Kind of a physique update from Charles. Again, a guy that I don't think should be counted out. Charles is a guy that's impressed me ever since he showed up at that 2018 Indy Pro. I think Charles is going to be very dangerous. He's going to give a lot of people a really hard time at that Chicago show. And I think people are going to be surprised by how good Charles really is. And especially some of those front poses. He's got a great front double bicep. He's got some pretty good side poses. If I'm remembering correctly from the Indy Pro, I think the main criticism was that he looked a little bit soft from the back. But all I'm saying is, based on what we're seeing, I think Charles Griffin, I think he's going to be a sleeper at this show. I think a lot of people aren't going to expect how good he's actually going to look. They're going to be surprised when he's in that first call out. Now, next up in the news, a 212 fan favorite guy, Cisternino, announced yesterday that he's going to be beginning his prep. This is week 1, day 1 of his prep. We don't know which show he's doing, but he does need to nab that Olympia qualification. So he's going to have to compete in that 5-month window between May and October to nab that qualification. Right now, the only qualified bodybuilders in 212 are Angel Calderon, Sean Clarita, Kamal El Gargni, George Peterson, Derek Lunsford, and Ahmad Ashkenani. So he does need to get that qualification. I think that like I said, he's one of the fan favorites. He's a great 212 bodybuilder. And I think his starting point actually is really the most impressive thing to me about these pictures, is that he's starting his prep looking like he's in actually really good shape to start with. And I know that in the past, conditioning has been one of Guy Cisternino's calling cards, because even in 212, he was never really the biggest guy. He's never really been a mass monster. Even in 212, he's been significantly under that weight limit. So it was the conditioning that he really utilized to his advantage, and I think this is a perfect example, starting his prep already in phenomenal shape. And then the final story I wanted to talk about today, Steve Laureus, his recent physique update, I thought was very impressive. Kind of the conversation around Steve over the past couple months. As we saw more and more physique updates from him lately, he took some time off to put on some size and fill out his very impressive frame for classic physique. I think his frame is a very important component of what makes Steve so good. He's got this really good frame for classic, a really small waist, really wide upper body, really wide shoulders, great V-taper. But I think the main problem was that he didn't have enough size. He needed to fill out his frame. Specifically, I thought his back was like the main thing he needed to bring up and add some size to. And of course, adding size to his back, it's going to only enhance the V-taper effect, that front lat spread kind of aspect of widening up your upper body from the front. In this recent physique update, hitting a trademark classic pose, again, I think you can see that Steve has made some significant improvements to his physique from a size standpoint. He looks thicker, if I can use that word. He looks better. And I think from a pure structure standpoint, he's one of the few guys that could one day hang with Chris Bumstead. I do think it's going to take some more size, especially we need to see the back, because Chris's back now is phenomenal. So we would need to see what his back is looking like too. And his legs could probably use a little bit more size to compete with a guy like Chris. But from a structure standpoint, very few people have that Chris Bumstead structure. Steve is a little bit taller. He's got a little bit of a larger frame, but he's still got those crazy classic proportions that I think are really advantageous in that division. And when filled out properly, I think that is going to be one of the most competitive aspects of classic. Really does come down to genetics. If you got a really good frame and you got a really good structure, then you just got to fill it out right. But I think genetics plays a really heavy component in how good you can do in classic. And I think Steve has the genetics to one day hang with like a guy like Chris Bumstead and challenge Chris Bumstead. I don't know if that's going to be this year or not, or next year. I personally think Chris Bumstead is going to go on to win 5 classic physique Olympia titles. I think he's got at least 3 more in him. Now, I did really like Terrence Ruffin in second at the 2020 Classic Olympia. I thought that was a great call. I thought posing is finally being rewarded in classic for what it should be. I think posing is a very important aspect of classic physique because it was so important back in the golden era of bodybuilding. I think there should be a heavy emphasis placed on posing in classic physique. And I think Terrence is the best poser in the IFBB right now, regardless of division, hands down. I think he was finally rewarded for that posing in the way that he's able to show off his physique in the most advantageous, flattering ways because his posing is so good. But what I was going to say was, him and Chris are such an apples and oranges comparison. It's hard to say whether or not they would give the title to Terrence over Chris because their physiques are so different. They're both very classic. They both have fantastic lines, fantastic symmetry. But I think it would be more like a guy like Steve Laureus, like a guy with a similar structure to Chris, but then looked better than Chris, would be the guy to beat Chris, is what I would think. Because it seems like a structure like Chris is what they're going for in that division. But I could be wrong because like Terrence in second, like I said, totally different physique than Chris, different than Breon as well, who took third. And I think it'll be interesting to see what happens at this year's Classic Physique Mr. Olympia. That's going to wrap it up for the video today, guys. I hope you did, in fact, enjoy it. Please give it a thumbs up if you did enjoy it. Please subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed yet already. As always, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power, signing out.